Opioid addiction in Mississippi. What is an opioid? Opioids are narcotics that act on opioid receptors to produce morphine-like effects. The most common opioids are painkillers, such as morphine, hydrocodone, and oxycodone. Opioid drugs sold under brand names include Oxycontin, Percocet, and Vicodin. Most Americans and Mississippians do not even realize what an opioid is and what it does, which means they do not even recognize when they have a problem. Prescription drug abuse is taking any medication prescribed for you or someone else and taking a higher dose of the drug or taking a drug in a manner that is not prescribed. Most overdose deaths in Mississippi are accidental and caused by prescription drugs. Healthcare providers started to prescribe patients opioid pain relievers in the late 1990s. Pharmaceutical companies promised the healthcare communities that patients would not become addicted, yet we know that was a lie. Opioid addiction has led to a widespread epidemic in America because of the misuse of medications. As opioid overdose rates began to increase, it became clear that they were highly addictive. In 2015, more than 33,000 Americans died as a result of an opioid overdose, including prescription opioids. These numbers are alarming and are increasing nationally throughout without any signs of decreasing in the near future. The state of Mississippi ranks number 4th in the nation for opioid prescription overdoses per capita. Nearly half of nearly half of all opioid overdose deaths involve prescription opioids. The rate the rate of opioid deaths involving prescriptions the rate of opioid deaths involving opioids are has doubled since 2000 in the southern states, which include Mississippi. In 2016, opioid overdoses killed more than 2,011 Mississippians, which is more than the national average of 115 in America. Is anyone safe from developing an addiction to opioids? The truth is no. If you are taking an opioid, you are at risk of becoming addicted. I want to study the triggers of opioids, the point when the brain feels the good neurotransmitters. When does the endorphins and when the endorphins tells your brain what pain is and what pleasure is, and in the temporary but powerful sense of well-being. When then what happens when you come down off of that high that opioid has actually given you? Some people find themselves wanting that feel good sense of well-being and security and not feeling anything back. I will begin this study by visiting 2 local alcohol and drug addiction facilities to speak with opioid users. I would ask them questions such as, at what point in your life were you introduced to opioids? How long have you been addicted to opioids? Have you ever used someone else's prescription or medication? Have you ever taken opioids to self-medicate? Have you ever searched for different doctors to get more opioids? Does drug addiction run in your family? I think those are some of the important questions that will help me figure out what the triggers are. Next, I would visit 2 local facilities to speak with doctors who prescribe opioids to find out how doctors determine which patients really do have a medical need versus those who do not. How many opioids are they prescribing daily? This can be tricky because some doctors are more experienced than others in determining who needs opioids. By conducting this research, I hope to understand how opioids triggers what are the opioid triggers in Mississippians, and how can we improve as a state. Once someone develops an addiction, sometimes it's hard to stop. We have to understand no one is safe. Opioids are the drugs that are holding on to our families and loved ones in our communities in Mississippi. It is time to change. We are not enforcing the limits on prescribing opioid drugs across the country. I think by limiting the amount of opioids being prescribed, it could change the practice of overprescribing opioids and will stop the epidemic.